We're also meta disjointed journey through the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. I'm Kat, she, her, and I am just in between jobs right now.
I'm Taryn, they, him, and she does not mean that she was fired.
No.
She means that we're recording this, between, this is her, 15th job.
There is so much work to be done, and you know what? I feel like there's a lot of people in Salem's Lot who could understand how it goes, but Ben is not one of them.
I was about to say, I feel like I'm more of a Ben. I just,
You're just up in somebody's attic.
I just go where the
Vampires go?
Takes me. Oh, do you think he's like a vampire chaser? Has he spent decades building his credibility? Oh, I can't make jokes about them right now. I feel really bad doing that.
That's fair, yeah.
Our hearts are with Aaron Goodwin.
Yeah.
Zach Bagans, I feel pretty much the same about, but honestly, actually, my feelings haven't changed.
We always believed in Aaron.
100%.
We fully support trigger warnings and taking care of your own mental health.
You sound so sad. Do you want me to read the trigger warnings?
No, I got it.
Okay. I just wanted to offer.
I'm fine. So, here, dogs, of course, now decide time to run on the hardwood
They
floors.
always do. It's. I don't know why you explain it every time. If the listeners don't know by now, we've been doing this a year and a half?
Yeah. Almost 2 years. July will be 2 years.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah. And
we haven't made it through the gunslinger.
And considering that, technically we had banked a couple of episodes before I started releasing them, by all accounts, yeah, actually we're right up on our 2 year, anniversary of actually recording shit and reading shit.
Dog theft just happened.
Dog theft just happened.
I gave them those chewies forever ago.
Is that even still good? Is it even something he can chew? Or is it just rock?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, anywho.
You know what? Rocket is a independent, adult-age dog who makes decisions for himself, and JJ's been hoarding that for that long, so...
JJ does have a hoarding problem.
I forgot they had those chewies, so... Sorry, anyways.
Also,
trigger warnings!
Also, real quick, before we get back to the trigger warnings, what?
The new family member.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't even getting to that. Sorry. So first, when this episode is coming out, the day that it comes out, we're gonna go see Alton Brown. I don't know what he's doing, other than promoting his book, but he's doing something on a stage.
It's the day after April Fool's Day, so, he could just not even show up and be like, fuck you, people.
That man does, some of everything, so I don't know what to expect.
Easy, man.
He cooks, he directs music videos, he makes funny comments. In one shot that took, I think, 1,000 tries, he could cut the bottle of a wine bottle, and look very cool doing it.
Uncork champagne with a...
He wears suits.
Yeah.
So what he's doing on stage, not a clue. I will report back after we actually see Alton Brown. Yeah, so, do you want to tell him about the new family member?
Yeah, I assumed because we were talking about dogs that the family member update, how in depth are we going about why the new family member is here? Because I feel bad because I don't know how much of Rocket and his tomfoolery made it into the last episode.
You could hear him crying a little bit, but I cut out a lot of us going, Rocket, what is wrong?
So, Rocket's tears last time seemed to be because our new house had not family members.
Unauthorized guests.
Mice.
mice.
We found there were mice.
Were mice. They were adorable, but they were not welcome.
No, yeah, we did ask them to leave.
We did ask them to leave, yeah.
Yeah. And
one of them
we escorted out.
And didn't come back.
But then there were more.
We think there was a mouse fight club in the oven. Because the one we escorted out had something stabbed into its eye.
Oh, man. And had been, like, kicked out of the oven. It was
so...
But we can't talk about it if there was a mouse fight club.
I mean, we don't actually know that for sure that there was. We are speculating on the possibility of a mouse fight club.
I feel like it still breaks the spirit of Fight Club to... either way.
We didn't give them the okay to have their, like, meeting in our oven.
There was pest control as well.
Yes.
We also went to get a mouser and came away from that trip with the oldest cat in the shelter.
He doesn't act like it, though.
No, he really doesn't. I'm shocked. But we came away with 14-year-old Grayson.
Agent Grayson, head of Cat Patrol.
Yeah, who we also have dubbed spiritually Clovis.
Yes. Clovis is the leader.
Yeah. We do believe that he's in touch with Clovis, but if so, Clovis would be really disappointed in Grayson.
He won't come out from my room.
Mostly under the bed.
Yep.
I get to see him only if I go in there. You likely won't hear of... like, you'll hear of Grayson, but you won't hear of Grayson.
Yeah. He's also not a big, like, meower. He's not a very vocal cat.
That's not always true.
I mean, no, but the only times he's meowed at me is when his water has run out. But other than that, he does not, like, meow
that
towards
day
me.
When you were gone, though, when JJ was barking in the living room, he was yowling in response from back in your room. And I was caught in the middle room, just listening. Rocket and I were just sitting in the bedroom like, this is wonderful for us, I guess. Like...
Well, if Rocket would let Grayson, like, chill without yelling at him...
Oh, he can't do that.
No, he can't. And so he does not help the situation.
Now we're outnumbered.
Yep.
But we were so much more outnumbered by the mice. Now we won't have any fucking sleepwalkers.
Yeah, that's true. We are also protected against sleepwalkers and mice.
You know, assuming Grayson will come out from under your bed.
Yeah. Anywho, so back to the trigger warnings. So, here are the trigger warnings for this book and this episode. Child death, child abuse, death, blood, violence, animal death, death of a parent, murder, gore, domestic abuse, injury detail, physical abuse, body horror, grief, infidelity, rape, animal cruelty, substance use, car accident, homophobia, medical content, sexual violence, misogyny, suicide, bullying, emotional abuse, gun violence, sexual assault, fire, kidnapping, confinement, torture, stalking, pedophilia, racial slurs, cannibalism, and fatphobia. It's a Stephen King book, if you hadn't already guessed. Alright, so we read part 2 of Salem's Lot.
I have no idea what I read as a teenager. There's
it's funny that, right?
Yeah, there's one scene that I remember, and it was in this section. I know exactly what scene it was now, because it has happened, and I will tell you when we get to it. It's the only one, other than some bits and pieces of Father Callahan. I don't know if I just went through picking out the Father Callahan bits and the sexy bits, or what. I'm really confused.
Well, maybe you blocked it out since you said it scared you when you were a kid.
It might have scared me. I was deep in my Anne Rice phase.
Well, I mean, those really are more sexy vampires.
Yeah. That's why I'm wondering. And I also might have just been bored by it because I'm like, this isn't what I'm here for. Where is Lestat? So
he is all vampires.
Well, more just, I'm like, wait, vampires are supposed to be sexy? Okay. And then I I tried to read this and I'm like, no, these are scary ones again. I'm not here for this. So.
But where's Banicula?
That scared the shit out of me as a child. So that's where.
So the it vibes were strong with this section. Let's get into it. First, Ben goes to Matt and confirms that Mike, the guy Matt had invited to crash at his place at the end of Act 1, is in fact dead. They decide to call the proper people to come and handle the body, but leaving out the creepy child giggling factor to Mike's death. The pair still intend to go to Marston House as a welcome wagon with Susan, but spoiler, that's not going to happen, so if you're waiting to see what they put in the welcome basket, just give it up now. You will never know. We will never know. Much like the guy Kieran, who has an outstanding story to be told from Eyes of the Dragon, we will never fucking know. So Ben goes back to, like, the place he's staying, Miss Ava's, I don't know. The lady who has, like, a boarding house. He ends up getting beaten up by Floyd, who is all decked out in no sun shall touch me gear. Ben is sent to the hospital, Floyd to the drunk tank where he dies. Susan goes to see Ben and he sends her to see Matt, who gives her the rundown with the whole Mike situation and what really happened. Then Matt hears someone upstairs, goes up scared, sees Mike, revokes the invite to his house. Mike retreats, drops his class ring. Matt has a heart attack and ends up in the hospital a couple floors above Ben. More people in Salem's Lot are dead and their bodies are missing. Susan tries to logic through all the vampire stuff but ultimately accepts it. She accepts it so much that she ends up going to Marston's house solo. She doesn't have a basket. Ben eventually gets out of the hospital and with the help of Matt's doctor, Jimmy Cody, they go and stake out the now deceased Mrs. Glick, who's Danny Glick's mother, the kid that, like, died at the beginning of all of this. Well, he didn't die. His little brother died, and he got turned into a vampire. Either way, Mrs. Glick comes back to life and goes after them in her new vampiric form. Then we pick back up with Mark, the kid that Danny and his brother had been going to see the day that all their shit, like, went down and Danny became patient zero of the vampire plague. Mark has also been suspecting vampires and seeing Danny show up at his house, wanting, like, in the night before, got him, like, focusing on Marston House too. Mark had told Danny to go, and interestingly enough, used the same thing Bill uses in It to take control of the moment, which is the speech therapy sentences, rain in Spain, fists against posts, those things. It's enough to stop himself from falling under Danny's spell. Mark then happens to be watching Marston House when he sees Susan. When he gets a chance, he goes and meets up with her, and they join forces with plans to stake the vampire. Needless to say, shit does not go in their favor. While Straker had left, he catches them in the house. He ties up Mark and dumps Susan down with the vampire in the basement, Kurt Barlow. Mark uses his shine and tips he saw in a thing about Houdini's escape tricks and manages to free himself of the ropes. And when Straker returns, maybe kills him. I'm a little uncertain or convinced that Straker is actually dead, but he sure as shit was hurt. Mark tries to save Susan, but ultimately can't, so he retreats and goes home. That night, Susan is at his window trying to get him to open up to her. He doesn't, and she goes. Mark knows he needs to try and find Ben. Back at the hospital, Father Callahan has been called in by Matt, who has also had Salem's Lot Library set him up with all the vampire books because he's really going through a phase. Matt asks for Father Callahan's assistance with the vampire situation, which Callahan agrees to under the condition they confront Straker first. Just to see what happens, Matt agrees as long as the others will also agree. Interestingly, he says Ben and Jimmy, but he does not include Susan's consent in this matter. I imagine it was simply an oversight because narratively Susan is already gone by this point. But it could also be a sign of some underlying something or other, I suppose, because Matt doesn't know that Susan is a bloodsucker. Or does he? Has she come to him in the hospital? That last bit's just my speculation of a possibility. I don't care. I don't like Susan. And that is part 2 of Salem's Lot.
You missed the part that I remembered.
There's a lot of little details in this. Why don't you just tell us about the part you remember?
It's Susan coming to Mark.
Okay.
In the window.
Well, I said she showed up to him.
Oh, I missed it because I keep trying to... Never mind. Okay, fine. No, that is like the scene that for some reason is very like etched on my memory is Susan coming to Mark. The kid.
Yeah. There's too many M names. Matt, Mike, and Mark. Also, Danny's father's name is Tony.
Yeah, I noticed that. For some reason, I deeply remember that scene. And then, of course, Father Callahan. And I really do wonder if I was reading specifically for Father Callahan. But I was so young. I was so much closer to Mark's age than I was to, like, maybe Susan's age, but certainly not Ben's age. That, like, she was dating an old man.
She is dating an old man in comparison to her.
Isn't he younger than us now?
I mean, technically, yes.
So, I mean, I get what you're saying. I'm just more saying.
Well, and frankly, like, I'm not looking at anybody in their 20s.
No, for sure. My point is more, I would have been 15 or 16 reading this. It could only have been one of those 2 years because of where I was living at the time. So I was 15 or 16 reading this. That's worlds different than, being nearly 37 and reading it now and being like, God, even Ben is young.
He ain't that young.
No, but I mean, I'd still rather have, like, 3 or 4 years knocked off my age than, I'm just saying, like, it's still closer to Mark's age than it is to Ben's age, so I related, I think, more with Mark. I probably read his scenes closer.
Yeah.
And then I read Father Callahan's bits because I was trying to understand who the fuck he was to understand better what was happening in the Dark Tower. But...
Well, and I don't even know if it would be that, because I will say, like, so much of these parts were super fucking boring when it was about Ben. Ben is not a very compelling character. He basically spent a bunch of time in the hospital and then spends a bunch of time just lecturing people whenever he talks to them. Because he's a pompous ass.
He feels like pre-Stovington Prep and pre-Colorado. Oh, Jack, thank you. I kept wanting to say Danny. I'm like, no, Danny's father. No, he feels very much like how Jack was written.
Yeah.
Especially the way, because he drinks so much, especially in the first part of the book. Obviously, he hasn't been doing so much now, but it's just, he is written so much like that.
Yeah.
But the good guy. Like, he's awesome.
Yeah, he is meant to be, like, so cool.
I think for the 1970s, he probably was.
No, I imagine he was.
I think we just know better now.
No, we do. We know so much better now.
I've yet to see it. Actually, that's not true. There's one dude who has seemed actually really fucking solid, and it's Mark's dad. Like, this guy's awesome. Like...
I mean, assuming that the, like, way that it cuts out when Mark gets home isn't his father beating him, yes. It's because it's unclear. Yeah. Because he just says, then his father descended upon him. What exactly did his dad do? Did he just get yelled at? Fine. How dare you not, come home on time and then... we've been worried sick about you, especially when people are going missing and dying and all of these shenanigans.
Yeah.
But if he raised his hand to his child under those same conditions, especially, it's like, that is not the way to, like, teach them. Call when you get there.
Given what we have seen so far, I am choosing to believe it was a stern talking to... with maybe a little bit of a raised voice. But considering how, like, autistic Mark is, Am I wrong here?
I don't know. I didn't really feel like he was on the spectrum. He shines like fucking crazy. But I don't know. I don't know. I didn't quite get that vibe.
It's the way that all of his movie monster pieces have to be exactly in order, and then he'll change the scene that they're in, but then they have to be in that scene, and then that's where he's going to leave them. The way that he gets along better with adults than with kids, to the point that, like, I mean, maybe not better than with kids. We've only seen him with a couple of kids, but he talks to adults on an adult level, to the point that when Susan shows up at the house, he literally just walks up to her and is like, "You're doing it wrong. I am going to do this."
Okay, you know what? Maybe the issue is just that this is not a neurotypical household.
No.
Because that just sounds normal.
No, for sure. And I think that's why, that's what tipped me off. The way that kid talks would have responded like Susan too. Like, you know what? Yeah, maybe you should be in charge of this. You know what you're doing.
I mean, to be fair, Susan is not written well.
No. That's... I can't.
Stephen King did not do Susan any fucking favors.
He was doing okay there at the beginning, but then I think when he decided, like, it's time for you to go, it was effort, like, left.
It's almost like his interest shifted, and I think it's because, like, we've talked in the last episode about there's so many shades of Sleepwalkers and It. Mark gives massive It vibes, like Bill vibes. That's why he's saying the same thing Bill says, I think.
Yeah.
But he's doing it 10 years before Bill will. So if he is getting struck by inspiration as he's writing this, like, no, I've got this great idea, I want to do this, I want to work it all in, maybe he lost interest in Susan and Ben, and that's why they started to suck, because they were not what was on his mind anymore. I will say, like, there are some really good quotes throughout here, and I think they're the most, like, telling Kingisms. A lot of them come from Mark's chapters.
Yeah.
Because he really started to focus on Mark in the second part.
He's very Jake.
Okay.
Am I wrong? Like,
I haven't seen enough Jake yet. I trust you on this.
It's very... I mean, Bill has that to an extent too, but it's that feeling of a kid who is so much older, like the old soul child.
Yeah.
Which, again, tends to be either trauma or neurodivergence or both. The way that and the fact that he shows up with a gun to the house, like, it's just so... Jake is not Jake yet. Is a little bit how I feel. Like, where we're at in the Gunslinger, he hasn't...
Yeah.
He has not became. Obviously.
Yeah.
But he will, and Mark, to me, gives those vibes. When I was first reading The Gunslinger, it felt like it was because of the influence of Roland, like, rubbing off on him, and I'm fairly sure Roland will also think that. Like, I'm watching this kid, like, I'm rubbing off on this kid, and that probably is true as well. But, like, seeing Mark and seeing that this is all the way back in 75, that he's writing this kid who is just very, like... Because in part one, the fight made me think of that fucking meme with the meme from the Sherlock with Robert Downey Jr. so bad of, like, discombobulate. Like, you know the one I'm talking about? But he's written so wise and old and just that way. I feel like Jake takes so much of that on, and he's right at that age as well. He's right in that there's always a boy. There's always a man and always a boy. And I feel like that's actually what it lacks. Like, Bill is his own, like, man to the boy. They all kind of are.
Yeah.
And it is kind of what sets it apart a little bit from this kind of prototypical Stephen King story where there's always...
Where he's, like, lacking his own father figure, so he's replacing it.
So he finds it in somebody else.
Yeah.
because there's either a missing father figure or an indifferent father figure or a shitty father figure, or just for some reason the father figure is not good enough or has to be replaced.
It's okay, Stephen King.
Hey, like, I can't tell you how much I get it. Complicated relationships with parents is what keeps therapists in business. And I say that having seen the same therapist for 6 years this year. She's amazing. Deserves every dime she gets. But, yeah, fucked up relationships with parents is what keeps therapists in business, so.
We'll take it.
I hope Stephen King has 3.
Just let him have all of the therapy. So, I don't know which chapter number it was, but the Lot 3, the one that's titled the Lot 3, starts out great, very epic, really into it, and then it went on for 3 fucking pages. One paragraph went on for 3 pages. What the fuck?
Sir, you were a teacher. That doesn't seem right.
One paragraph.
Because I listened to it. I read part 1, but I listened to part 2.
Yeah.
I didn't have to suffer that.
Yeah, no, I kept, reading, I was like, when is this paragraph going to be over? When is it over? Fuck, it's taking forever. It's 3 pages long.
What was the paragraph?
I will share with you.
No, you can't just tell me what it was about. I don't need to be...
I don't remember it after a certain point because frankly, it was too long and it stopped being good. God. So, first sentence, this is just its own paragraph, I guess. The town knew about darkness, and then we get into it. And I liked it.
No,
in the beginning.
I know what bit it is. Because it's the bit about the guy who set the fire and the guy who went off. The guy who set the fire is the guy who made the money, and then the guy who killed his wife and her skeleton is buried, and then I know what portion you're talking about. I can see why it would be a single paragraph, but because he doesn't want to give the importance to each story, to separate out each story as their own paragraph. So you leave it as a run-on, because if I were reading that out loud, I would be building up speed almost as I'm getting to the end.
Yeah.
Because of the switch that it has at the end.
And it goes on until basically, it's...
But if you're not...
told all the bits.
But you're gonna lose it. But I wonder also if that's also another style thing, because, okay, you start to get numb to that kind of darkness as those stories go on and as they get told, right? Yeah. So that long of a paragraph, you started to get numb to the stories that are getting told.
Yeah.
Until it finally switches.
Yeah. Yeah, because it lost me. It fucking lost me.
And we know I'm not an apologist for the way he fucking writes sometimes. So I'm not trying to say that... I'm not trying to be an apologist for it. I'm just saying that I know the exact part you're talking about, because when it was read out in the audiobook, because there are those kind of...
Oh, yeah.
Things, like, having grown up in a small town, though, in a West Coast small town, small towns are the same. Like, yeah. I know well, and maybe I'm wrong. I didn't grow up in Maine, but from how he describes small towns, they're kind of the same.
Yeah, no, they kind of feel the same.
And, you have this shit, and you do kind of get, like, there is this kind of feeling of just, this is our dumb shit.
Yeah.
But those fuckers in the next town over, their darkness is different.
Well, and we all do know darkness, don't we? Because, it starts out really good. I really did like the way that this began. But, yeah, as it started to get into the actual, and this begat that, and that begat this, and that begat that, and on and on and on. I'm like, oh, dear God. Fucking shoot me. Please.
I can see why I wouldn't remember so much of this book at that point.
Oh, yeah. No, because, there's so many things that I'm not even recapping because, I vaguely remember them, but at the same time,
Yeah.
this book is interesting.
Yeah.
Because there are parts that are very good and I do think show what a strong, like, writer Stephen King is. And then there's all this stuff that it's like, I don't care. It's filler to me. But that is to me. I think other people might be more, like, connecting with it. But it is hard to sum it up then because it's just like, this is just background information on Salem's Lot. Because Salem's Lot is just as much a character as the Overlook is in The Shining.
I am interested to see how you, because of your interest in epidemiology, I'm interested to see what you think of the book as we come to the end of it, because there's been a couple references to, like, this as, like, infection, like, oh, you know, the baby, you know, could have infected the whole family now, and it really is kind of written almost like these out-of-towners brought an infection into town, and it started with one kid who is patient 0, who has now started spreading it.
Yeah, there's so many vampires. Everybody's a vampire now.
And I do feel like that's how it's being, like, that's how he's writing it at this point, is very much like it's an infectious disease. And I think it's interesting that now there's, like, a doctor also, like, approaching it.
Yeah.
A
Dr.
shitty
Jimmy.
doctor. Like, hey, Dr. Jimmy is kind of the, he is the embodiment of that saying of, like, what do they call the guy who graduated at the bottom of the med class?
Yeah.
Doctor. Like, which is terrifying. Like,
D's get degrees.
even in med school! Oh my god. D's don't really get degrees anymore. I think now it's C's get degrees.
Yeah.
Which is better.
So, Stephen King done good words.
Yeah, it's ramping up. It just feels like there's not...
You know what? This book does feel like it could have been shorter.
Maybe, yeah. Let's see how it gets through the end. I think that this section was just not... For how much it felt like there was in the first section, it feels like there's not as much in this one. Like, for how long it was as well.
God, this book is so fucking weird, because here's the thing. Like, I would say that I like Salem's Lot so far.
Yeah.
There are so many parts of it that I don't like, though. Like, it's another book where I could probably cut it down to my taste. It's not like it where I'd just be cutting it down for everybody. But there's so many things that I'm like, I don't care. Please just get on with it.
Yeah.
But then there's other parts I'm like, God damn, that's so good.
Yeah.
This is so good. Looking back on Salem's Lot and what we've read to this point, it's like very little has happened. But I felt like very little happened in the first part. But we were like, it was Act 1. We're ramping up. Oh, now we have a dude who's probably dead. And then here in Act 2, we're like, okay, vampires everywhere. Vampire. As far as the eye can see, vampires in Salem's Lot. And so we are at the like, oh no, all is lost moment. So Act 3 has to do, like, bring us back around and get us to it being somewhat resolved. Though obviously it's never fully resolved if the True Knot are setting up there.
Yeah.
As then that's one of their towns. And how far back does that ownership go exactly? Is that what Marston was? And what all the fuck happened there? But maybe that's the problem, is there's too many, like, leads.
Yeah.
That we have to start tying the stuff up, and it's just feeling like void.
I think this is maybe something that I don't know if it's something that is a strength of Stephen King's or is a trait of Stephen King's but I wonder if it's one of the things that has really contributed to his sort of mass appeal, is that you could cut it down to your taste.
Yeah.
And I imagine it would be very different than how I would cut it down to my taste.
Probably.
he's introduced so many different characters. And we've barely touched on most of them. Like, we've touched on the main people.
Yeah.
But we haven't touched on, like, he introduced an entire town.
Yes, he did.
Worth of people. And there are people and plots and actions that have occurred that are important that we haven't touched on because in reality, I don't think either of us cared.
No. Well, and it because it's not coming back around.
But I think they have. Like we haven't talked about the dump.
No, I know, but that's my point, because we haven't gotten to their conclusion, because they all come up in the lot chapter. And so I know, like, we get more lot chapters, but I'm assuming that in the next section we'll get the lot chapter that starts to bring it all together, because they're recurring, but it's just like, you're still doing a thing that I don't even understand why I have to care.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that you're going to become a vampire. That's
yeah.
I'm of the impression you're here to be cannon fodder because he's holding the cards a little too close to the vest. And I mean, he's building tension, because I can say some of it is getting creepier. I can say for me, it's just like, I don't really understand why I have to care about this yet. I recognize that you're telling me about this woman who's having an affair and now her husband has caught them, but like, her affair partner shit his pants. But you haven't told me why I have to care about these three people in the first place.
But I think he did. I think he tells you why you have to care when he shows Barlow?
It's Barlow who approaches the dude.
Because Barlow says, I really couldn't have thrived like this in a city. He's using these small town, like, bullshit connections and bullshit little rumors and shit to kind of thread his way in and infect the entire town and make the town into what he needs and what he wants. Like,
and I'm very confused by that too, by the way.
Sure.
Like, okay, so he keeps turning people into vampires. At what point does he start to worry about his food supply?
Clearly, at the point that he worries about his food supply, he packs up the antique store and he moves on.
This just feels like reckless vampiric making.
I mean,
like, dude needs to keep it in his mouth for a minute. He is going to overrun, and then there isn't going to be a food supply anymore. Because all of them show up and are hungry.
I imagine he can then destroy them, or he is assuming that they will destroy each other or themselves. I mean, 'cause it's not something the True Knot really thought about either, which I think is also a trait, like, not a trait, but a thing that Stephen King does a lot of. Evil's kind of stupid.
Evil is so stupid.
Like, they're short-sighted.
Yeah.
They never really think about that point in the future. Yeah. Barlow's gonna Barlow, like...
He's just slinging it around town.
God damn it, stop. Like, I'm trying so hard not to make any more Eurogay jokes. Like,
this has nothing to do with him being a Eurogay. It has to do with him being a man and a vampire.
I know, but like, we have like Eurogay confirmed, and like, all I can hear in my head is like Rasputin by Boney M playing every time he comes up, and like,
well, either way, I just feel like he's being very irresponsible with how many people he is having turned into vampires.
Yeah, 100%.
This isn't going to work in the long term. Like, I know how to do math well enough to know that if I made a math model of this isn't going to work well.
No, but maybe like he goes to sleep or something, and then they all die out. Mm-hmm. Because if he's like... Because there's always, like, a vampire who's... Okay, you've played a lot of Baldur's Gate. There's always a vampire who's a better level vampire than the other vampires, right?
That's true, yes.
And then that vampire is like, alright, you all do what I want and bring me what I need. And then now that we have a problem, I'm going to bed for a while. You all just do what you're gonna do and die. Like... and then he goes to sleep until they need to bring him out as a bad guy again. Like, that is how that always happens. I don't know for sure, because I cannot remember how this book goes. Like, that's why I'm trying not to, like, gloat over the things I was right about. Because it's like, was I right or did I remember? I promise you I didn't remember. Because the problem that you're having of, like, I don't care about this. I'm pretty sure I just did so much of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because I gotta say, if I had read this as a teenager, I don't think I probably would have finished it. I think I probably would have ended up putting it down. Because, like, you hear, oh, Salem's Lot is Stephen King's vampire book. And while there are a lot of vampires in part 2, it is not about vampires, frankly. They're hardly in it. This is not what I signed up for. And I wasn't looking for sexy vampires. I was looking for bloodthirsty, we are throwing down with vampires. I was looking for, like, John Stakely vampires.
I don't remember that many vampires in that one either, but I also skipped around in that one.
Well, they were like vampire hunters, so they were actually interacting. It was a different kind of, like, vampire story.
No, that's fair.
That's what I would have wanted as a teenager. And this, I'm not shocked because I've read so much Stephen King at this point. I know how this guy does shit. And it's always slow. He never just gets to the point.
Well, that would require, like...
having one?
Story, but he writes scenes.
I know. Which is why he doesn't have a point. And he's got irresponsible vampires.
Which, honestly, is just vampires. I will say, I think the other thing I hated with this is that I prefer vampires that don't infect on a single bite. Yeah. Like, I will always prefer vampire lore that isn't like, oh no, I've been, like, nicked. And I've been bit, I'm fucked. Like, I want, like, vampires where it's like, I've been bit and now we fuck. Like, not... like, or it doesn't, okay,
you want the pageantry.
Yes, or even if we're not, because Anne Rice vampires famously could not and cannot fuck. Like, the new TV show changed that. Like, it is...
did they really?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, okay.
There's so much very explicit sex in the new show.
But
I haven't watched all of it.
Between the vampires, or is it... okay,
yeah, oh, yes. Yes.
I was going to try and see if I could, like, argue that maybe we don't know.
Which I'm good for. Like, I'm down for. I think it was a good choice. I think that I understand her choice, because the idea, like, we're going to take a slight, to talk about vampires post-Dracula and not talk about Anne Rice for a second, we would be remiss. We have to, because it changed everything. Like, I would argue it changed everything. Interview with the Vampire changed everything about vampire lore, right? Came out right around the time that this did. It might have been a little after, but it was right around the same time. And the way she wrote it is that the blood drinking is so much better than sex. They just don't care. It's that. And then it's also that they just physically are, like, incapable. And they're always half hard all the time. But they just don't get, there's just no point. Like, they don't have the drive isn't there. But that the blood drinking is so much better. The TV show, again, has changed that. It's more in line with where vampires kind of went, like, moving forward, where it kind of built off of that. Because which I do think Stephen King has, in fact, I won't even say think, like, he absolutely has kind of tapped into the implicit, like, lust of vampires, right? That was there, the, like, sexiness and lust and whatever. She took it to another level and then brought gay into it, which I'm like, yes, good on you, Anne Rice. But then she kept going back to Catholicism and being like, oh no, I can't anymore. Like,
well, and I mean,
I must write about Jesus. And then
I don't know how much we can attribute the gay to her. I mean, maybe if, like MLM gay, but, like, Carmilla was very gay, is my understanding. Which is what Dracula was built off of.
So her son is gay.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of it came from.
Oh, okay.
Was because he was, or at least that's my understanding, is it came from there. It came from being involved in just the kind of scenes that she was involved in. But I guess I don't know what came first, but to my knowledge, her son being gay was part of it, because I don't think that's a coincidence.
No, I can't imagine it would be.
And as far as I know, like, that was some of it. And, yeah, I mean, it's always, yeah, there's so, we can't, you want to talk about Hierophant fucking rants, we can't, that would have to be a whole episode on its own.
Don't worry, eventually we'll do that Twilight episode, and we'll talk about other vampire shit at some point, too.
We can't, we cannot talk about other vampire shit in the Twilight episode. That's
No. I just mean different episodes.
Yeah.
Because now we're just going to explore vampires. So, you know, aside from, like, talking about all the things we hate about this book, we've raged against so many Stephen King books. But at the end of the day, like, it's not bad. I think that there's some really good bits in here. But I think what this does really well, though, is because he talks so many times in this book about the, like, evil in general, is it says so much about the entire King verse and how he is placing evil throughout his stories, which I would say is the most interesting thing to me about Salem's Lot, is the King verse lore that is essentially built into this book.
Yeah.
In particular, which is funny because it is from 75. But so it's before he starts doing so many other books. And to see where the seeds kind of were starting, and what he's going to end up doing with them, even in books that we've read 10 years later from this, he's going to have it. And while I did not like it, I understand it a little bit better because of some of the quotes about evil, and then the bit in Mark's chapter about not Mark's chapter, but in his section of the Lot chapter about, like, this is the difference between men and boys, because, like, Matt, the teacher Matt, the other M name, that's 4 letters, his response was so much more, like, childish as compared to Mark's. And it's where we're building to with it and what they have to do, because there's also a bit about, like, there's no therapy for the monster under your bed. You have to just stop believing in the monster under your bed. If anything comes out of reading Salem's Lot, it's not like the joy of vampires.
No, it's
but
true.
It is solidly a King verse lore.
Yeah. Well, no, like, to the extent that, again, Father Count, like, spoiler, what I do remember is Father Callahan dies in this book and comes back like 20 plus years later as in the Dark Tower as part of the fucking quartet. Like, he will be brought back. I don't remember that it's explained that he even knows how or why. I think that we're going to have a lot of theories about how or why it happens. It might be explained, and I didn't understand it because I just wasn't intaking it in that way, and I wasn't thinking about it critically in that way. And I wasn't reading every line. I do not remember so much of this book. Like, clearly I wasn't paying attention. As far as I remember, Father Callahan dies. I might even be wrong about that, but the fact that we've got 2 people, like, we get the Romeo and Juliet beginning of this book with 2 people alive.
Yeah. Tells me we have 2 survivors. Oh, yeah. That is the implication, and it's heavily implied that Ben is the adult.
Yeah.
Though,
the car.
To be fair, both Ben and Father Callahan are writers. So, if Father Callahan took his car because everybody else died and he just needed to get him and Mark out,
I think the scenes with the church at the beginning would have been different.
That's fair. I do think it's been, for what it's worth. I'm just saying, like, I hadn't really thought about the fact that one of the big reasons I got that vibe was because they were talking about the adult man being a writer, but by all means, Father Callahan is also a writer.
I think Stephen King hadn't decided whether or not it was going to be Ben or Matt. And that's why it's ambiguous.
Yeah.
If it was ambiguous, because I don't remember.
It is. They don't actually say the name for either the child or the adult.
Okay.
They just, like, they say the boy for Mark, but it seems pretty clear that it's Mark. All the other children have died.
Yeah.
Like, anybody else who kind of fits the bill for,
what
for
about
the child.
The bully kid?
The bully kid?
The bully kid that he has to, that he, like, beats
I mean,
up
I guess
at the
that
beginning.
kid could finally come back, and it's that he's the kid in the epilogue.
I won't lie. That would make this work for me.
But yeah, it's left very ambiguous.
Yeah.
In that, other than the fact that they were in Salem's Lot when everything went down.
Yeah.
They never say the names of either one of them. They just give some sort of vague descriptions. And technically, yeah, the one for the adult man could have fit a few people in this situation.
I think the fact that only Ben and now Mark have survived going into the Marston house and coming out as children means it has to be them.
That would be my assumption. Watch the twist as it's Jimmy. Dr. Jimmy survives another day.
I can only...
He did get bit. That's not going to happen.
I only see him in my mind as the dentist from Bob's Burgers.
Dr. Yap.
Yeah, isn't his name Jimmy? Or am I... No, I'm thinking Jimmy Pesto, probably.
Yeah, probably.
But for some reason, I only can see him as the... Maybe because he sounds like Freddie Wong's older brother, who I think is named Jimmy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that would be Freddie's brother.
So I can only picture this guy as that. And it has totally just... Like, before they even described him as inept... I'm like, that's fucking, I
mean, he does okay. He does, like...
That's that fucking narc from fucking Dungeons and Daddies. Oh my god.
This doctor, though, is played a lot more like if Freddy played him.
I know. Like, wait, I have to disinfect it. Like,
yeah.
I'm going to die. No. You know what? I think I'm gonna live. Like, he's the fucker in a zombie movie who gets bit. And it's like, no, guys, no, I'm fine. Or hides it.
Yeah. Well, now that we have totally derailed, I think maybe let's just...
I'm so sorry.
Let's just pull a card and, like, put ourselves out of our misery.
Oh, that's the wrong hand. That is not the hand you pull cards with at all. What was it last week?
So, last time, we pulled the Eight of Pentacles, which refers to the mastery of a skill, usually in isolation, involving hard, tedious work and encouraging seeking help. Kind of like Matt did.
Oh.
Yeah. Called in a professional.
Well, this week, we've pulled the Star.
Ooh, major.
Yeah, which has a naked lady on it. She is pouring one vase.
One out for her homies.
I was getting to the one out for the homies. One vase into a pond. One out for the homies outside of the pond. It is a blonde woman. They are naked. So I am hard pressed to believe that this is not a one. Like, generally I try to use a little more like vague terms, but this was definitely drawn to be female. Lots of stars in the sky. They are 8-pointed stars. There's a bird on a tree. And it's a very well-lit day. One star is yellow, so I'm assuming that's the sun, actually, even though it's the star. Which is kind of surprising to me, because there's a sun card. So,
well, I mean, the sun is a star.
No, I get that, but there's a sun card, so why would you...
What I want to know,
or is there not a sun?
There is a sun.
Yeah.
But, like, look at the bird. Look at what the bird is on. How big is that bird? Is that bird gigantic? Or... like,
no, or is the lady gigantic?
That's what I'm trying to get at. What is up with the tree and the bird? Think about it.
I don't want to.
Especially because it's like a weird looking bird.
It's like a crane.
Is it a crane?
It looks like some kind of heron or crane or something. Just like, look. That's not what you're supposed to be looking at on this card.
I understand that. I'm just very distracted by the fact that this bird is like the size of the tree that the bird is on.
The card is about titties. And is it a tree or is it like a bush?
I don't know.
Or like a broccoli? I don't know.
It looks like broccoli.
Like, it does. I'm not wrong.
No, I know. I agree. So the star card is symbolic of renewal, faith, and spirituality. It shows a naked woman pouring water out of 2 vessels to continue the natural cycle of fertility. There is a large star in the background with 7 smaller stars, each of which representing the chakras. The star represents a time of personal growth as one develops a renewed appreciation for their blessings.
Well... no mention of that bird, though.
No mention of that bird. What? How high was the, like, original artist?
Of the Rider-Waite deck?
Yeah.
Depends. Which drug are you asking about? I think that they were at least as high as that bird is. Like, high up.
Fair enough. So, next time we are finishing Salem's Lot. Just read the rest of it. It might be part 3 and an epilogue. It might be part 3, a sneaky part 4 and an epilogue. I don't know. Just finish the book if you're reading with us. If you are relying on our... like,
don't do that.
recounting, you are missing a lot of details, and I'm sorry. Yeah.
There's worlds where the dimensions of this make sense. Go find one of them.
Lobsters, if you just can't get enough of us or want to see the shenanigans of Minnie and Connie, the mini constant lobsters, you can follow us on Blue Sky or check out our Patreon. On Patreon, you can follow us for free and get access to all of our movie watch throughs, you know, in case you really wanted to know what it was like to have us in the room with you, really wishing we'd be quiet so you could watch the damn movie. Okay, bye.